if we have a way to measure or heighten our awareness of what the reality is or the potential range of a given market may be in a month, we can break it down to a week, and then we can break it down to a day. And that'll help us stay focused and grounded when we come to making a trade decision. Now, again, I did say that we want to use 5 p.m. New York bank settlement close for the daily numbers. For the weekly calculations, let's take the open from Sunday night session and use the close on Friday. Anything that occurs during that week from the high to the low, that's going to be our values for using our pivot point weekly calculations. So anything between Sunday night that makes the high and Friday's close, and anything between Friday's close and, of course, from Sunday's close to Friday's close, from Sunday's open to Friday's close, in that time frame, those actually 5.5 days, anything that's the low in that time period will be the value for the low. So we have the high, the low, and of course Friday, real simple, we're using the 5 p.m. bank settlement time for the weekly numbers. Now, for monthly calculations, many people have asked me some really good questions on this, and they say, well, what is your month? Do you do it from the middle of the week to the middle of the same week a month from now, or what do you do? And I use calendar months. Let's stay on the same business cycle as the rest of the world, the rest of the banking system. We've got to stay in the same system that hedgers, commercials, the professionals are, and therefore we're going to be on the same time frame, and possibly we'll be in sync with the same numbers that the big guys are looking at, and that's what we want to do. Now, here's the calculation for the mathematical formula, where P equals the pivot point, C equals the close, H, of course, the high, and L for the low. Now, the pivot point number, we're going to take the high, the low, and the close. We're going to add those up together, and we're going to divide by 3. So, again, that would go like this. The pivot point is going to be the high, the low, the close. Add those up, then divide by 3, and again, that gives us our pivot point. Now, that pivot point is very important to help determine our resistance and support calculations. There are, in essence, 2 resistance numbers in pivot points and 2 support numbers. Now, to figure out R1 as it's known, or the first resistance point, we take the pivot point times 2, take that value, subtract the low of the session, and then we get R1. For the second resistance, take the pivot point number, add the high, and then subtract the low. That would look like this. Pivot plus high, subtract low, equals our R2, our resistance number 2. For the first support, take the pivot point number times 2, and then subtract the high. So that would be pivot times 2 minus the high, and that gives us S1, or support 1. For the second support, take the pivot point number, subtract the high, and then add the low. And that'll look like this. Pivot minus the high plus the low equals S2. Now, this formula is in your trading manual as well, so you have it here on this presentation and also in writing in your booklet. Now, some analysts use the calculations for determining an even larger degree price expansion prediction. And that's what pivot point calculation in essence really is. It's taking a given time frame of a given time and helping us to determine what the potential high or low or range might be for the next time period, or again, a projected expansion or extension of the prior time period's price range. So in foreign currencies, sometimes we see some very wild, extreme market moves, and some people feel it's important to expand on those price ranges, and so they'll use what's called R3 and S3. In other words, a third resistance and a third support target. Here's the calculation in the formula and how you can do it yourself. For those who are computer savvy and those who are good at Excel, you can develop your own program and have this in your own Excel program. Take resistance for the R3 would be the high plus 2 times the value of the pivot, subtract from the low. For S3, take the low, subtract 2 times the value of the high minus the pivot. And that's the mysterious, the elusive, and one least talked about, the R3 and S3 calculations. Now,